So we knew the return was coming at some point with Bisco, right? Just given the fact that you don't bring Kurokawa back and not bring back the same person who basically drowned with him in a sea of lava and then introduce basically Attack on Titan level threats, right? It was going to happen eventually. My money was on next week's episode, the final episode. But I think if there was ever a better way to bring him back, the way they went about it, with Milo essentially becoming Bisco from last week, this week even more so, basically carrying on the essence, the strength, the courage that he had, right? I mean, it's not like he was actually inside him, like, physically. It was more so like a spiritual thing, like the courage and the strength that he had, he took in it for himself and was talking like him, acting like him, because that's what gave him courage to do the impossible, right? And I love seeing the build up to that moment because once it really started with the knife sequence, I was pretty sure they were about to bring him back, but I wasn't sure exactly how they were going to go about it because when he was just stabbing repeatedly and it wasn't moving at all, I was thinking to myself, okay, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if basically the reason he's not moving, maybe it was like a fight for control. Like what if it was Kurokawa fighting with, Bisco in order to control this beast? And maybe something like that is what they're building up to. And then we see our boy get thrown into a goddamn wall. Breaking spines is what I would assume would happen there. And you see him hold his goggles that he always wears on his head. And then you see that arm sequence. And that was just such a beautifully directed scene because in any other situation, essentially it'd be like the undead coming back. An arm's breaking through the rocks. It's coming out to basically seek revenge. But in that moment, after such a hopeless situation, to see him come out, not just get revived and things like that, the fact that you immediately see that his arm is like glowing this red pinkish tinge, and you're knowing there was a power-up in store there, like whatever happened with the rust, I mean, it seems like his arm is now composed of that, and if he can like charge up a fistful of doom, I mean, I think we know how we're about to beat this creature, because seemingly the mushrooms weren't doing much other than slowing it down. Milo, bless his heart, did everything he could, but ultimately tripping, basically shooting. I mean, we're seeing attack helicopters, tanks, everything like that. They're just being turned to rust. The only one who had a fighting chance was him and his bow, and seemingly that wasn't enough. So Bisco kind of coming out of this creature with the same type of energy that is being used to target, I mean, that might be the only way to destroy it. Like, whether he actually turns it to rust or it's just more of a physical enhanced move, either way, you don't show a glowing arm and not have that be a key player. It's basically like video game logic. If you see a red barrel, it's going to explode. If you see a glowing sword, it's probably better than the generic sword. Same thing's going to apply with a glowing arm that is going to have a fistful of rage after seeing Best Boy get thrown into a wall. I mean, smackdowns are in order, right? But I did like seeing the entire kind of cast get introduced once again with something that also could kind of feel like a final episode in a lot of ways. I love just seeing the different perspectives, whether it's the kids basically running for their lives, valuing that even though they don't want their home to be destroyed, ultimately their home lives within inside each and one of them. As long as they live, they can have another home. Seeing the girls here and how they're just like going from already in love with Milo, thinking he was dead to begin with, now probably getting even more excited over him, given the fact that now not only is he this kind-hearted doctor who treats them low of charge, the fact that he now is a badass with a bow. If they didn't want him already, I mean, this episode made them want him like 100 times over. It was just really cool to get a perspective of the world in general, because we did have a pretty decent-sized supporting cast from the very beginning, and some of them it's easy to forget about. I gotta be honest, I forgot about the girls until this episode, just because it happened at the beginning of the anime, and we've been watching this show for a few months. So it was nice to see that now that we're pushing back to the central hub of where everything started, Kurokawa about to destroy everything that he seemingly wanted to save, at the very least for a profit. It was just really cool to see it feel like a final push and also feel hopeless all at the same time. I mean, without Bisco coming back, I truly didn't think there was a way for them to stop it, because nothing seemingly that we've been introduced to could defeat this. The only way that maybe they could have is if Milo made some sort of concoction that basically he thought on the fly, mixed a mushroom with a chemical, and maybe it rusted the thing out and just, destroyed it in that way. And that very well still could happen. We don't know. But the fact that they brought it back and kind of gave a character a power-up in such a way that feels realistic given what we just saw for the antagonist and how he came back, I mean, him coming back with a glowing arm of fistful of rage, I mean, I think it's pretty okay, all things considered. And I imagine there would probably be some limitation that if it is a kind of one-shot KO, it's not going to be something that can be used on repeat against any threat that does pop up, especially given that, it is so early into the light novels in terms of this adaptation, and there is so many more to go off of, right? And if you're going to bring him back after basically seemingly his death, you best make sure he has a handicap if he is going to have, basically a nuclear bomb in the palm of his hands. It might also only be a one-time thing, right? Maybe he has all his energy in his arm, he'll use it one time to stop this creature, and then his arm will just go back to normal. Maybe that's going to be the direction. There's a lot of different ways they can take this, and once again, I leave this show saying, whatever they choose is going to work. That's kind of been my feelings for now 11 weeks of watching this show. Whatever they choose to do is probably going to work. Started off as one of the craziest anime of the season. It looked absurd, it looked insane. How the hell are they going to stick the landing with this many ideas? And every single week they've escalated the crazy while simultaneously making it fit for the world that we're seeing. Truthfully, I don't know exactly what they want to end on, because if they do end up killing Kurokawa once and for all, destroy the bod, where do you go from here? Because then the city's no longer in that much danger from a crazy bastard, but at the same time, is it just going to open up the world more about trying to find cures and spread knowledge? It very well could go in that direction, or it could just, they could stay in that and then different threats would come to them. I'm not sure, but either way, this was a pretty good 10 out of 10 episode, all things considered. I love the look of it, I love the perspectives, I love the action of just seeing a giant colossal beast walk and you trying your best to dodge the lasers and basically trip it with mushrooms. Mila had some pretty good sneak attacks in from basically shooting on the fly, deflecting his own kind of downfall with a mushroom popping up as a comfy cushion, all things considered. Just great shit across the board. I mean, the only question I now have is if they don't kill Kurokawa, if they do something similar to what they did with Viso, right? They remove him from this creature, the creature gets deactivated, whatever, or gets destroyed. Maybe that's going to be the direction they're going to go in terms of keeping the conflict up. I'd be interested to see if there would be a justifiable reason to keeping him around at that point, because it seemingly looks like the people would no longer follow him if he did survive. And I think he's been one of the stronger antagonists of the season. I love his selfish desires and everything like that. But I'm curious to see if they would commit to keeping him around, and if there would be a good justifiable reason for the people not completely revolting after essentially having Milo scream his name at this creature, and that creature was about to destroy their entire homeland. So it'll be interesting to see, right? I mean, the show hasn't given me any reason to worry, so I'm not worrying yet. It's just something that sometimes when I reach the kind of conclusion of a show, I do think of the what ifs could go wrong, and then I try to see, based on what we've seen up until this point, logic would say they can avoid having that kind of downfall. And either way, I mean, it'll probably end up being a pretty damn close to perfect anime for what this show attempted to be anyway. And I'm excited to see, because this is just, it's fresh, it's exciting, but I also kind of feel like it might work well as a one and done season, just because if they never give us more, it just kind of feels to me like they could have an open-ended sort of ending, even similar to how 86 recently ended, where there's still more threat, but you also feel satisfied if they never gave us more, sort of a thing. But I digress. So we'll see where it goes from here, but let me know your thoughts, especially if you're anime only, what you thought of this crazy-ass episode, favorite moment if you have any. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.